You're too sick to enjoy it anyway. My mother-in-law Patricia's voice dripped with contempt through the phone. I did everyone a favor by selling that old lake house. The money will help pay your medical bills since you insist on these expensive treatments. I lay in my hospital bed, still groggy from surgery, trying to process what I was hearing. The lake house, my grandfather's pride and joy, my childhood sanctuary, my inheritance, sold without my knowledge or consent while I was under anesthesia. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 34, I was battling a rare heart condition that required specialized surgery. The lake house was my safe haven, the place where I recovered between treatments, finding peace in the sound of gentle waves and morning mist over the water. My grandfather had left it to me in his will, knowing how much the place meant to me. You had no right, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. That property was mine. Patricia's laugh was sharp and dismissive. Oh, please. You can barely take care of yourself. Besides, Marcus agreed it was for the best. The buyers are already moving in. Marcus, my husband, of course, he'd sided with his mother. He always did. I ended the call, letting my phone drop onto the sterile hospital sheets. Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. I wouldn't give Patricia the satisfaction, even if she couldn't see me. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Mrs. Parker? A woman in a crisp business suit entered, holding a leather portfolio. I'm Amanda Torres from Lakeview Realty. I hope I'm not interrupting, but this couldn't wait. I gestured for her to come in, curious about her urgent expression. I'm here about the lake house sale, she began, taking a seat beside my bed. There seems to be a significant issue with the transaction. You mean besides the fact that I never agreed to sell it? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Amanda's professional demeanor shifted to one of concern. Wait, you're the owner, correct? According to county records, the property was inherited by Olivia Parker from Howard Matthews. Yes, that's me. My grandfather left it to me 5 years ago. She opened her portfolio, spreading out several documents. Mrs. Parker, the sale documents were signed by Patricia Wilson, claiming power of attorney. She presented paperwork, but something fell off. I did some digging. She paused, meeting my eyes. The power of attorney document appears to be forged. A strange calm settled over me. Of course, Patricia had forged documents. She'd never let something as trivial as legality stand in her way. Can you prove it? Amanda nodded, pointing to various details on the papers. The notary stamp is inconsistent with registered notaries in our database. Plus, the documents are dated last week, but the paper stock wasn't even manufactured until this month. It's a sloppy forgery. I thought about Patricia's smug voice on the phone, her certainty that she finally won. She'd been trying to control my life since I married Marcus 8 years ago, convinced I wasn't good enough for her precious son. The lake house had been a particular thorn in her side, prime real estate that she believed should belong to the real family. What happens now? I asked. The sale is void, Amanda explained. I've already contacted the buyers and frozen the transaction. But Mrs. Parker, she hesitated, this is serious fraud. Do you want to press charges? Did I? Patricia had finally overplayed her hand, given me irrefutable proof of her manipulation. But criminal charges would tear the family apart, force Marcus to choose sides. A memory surfaced. My grandfather sitting on the lake house porch, teaching me to fish sometimes. Sweet pea, he'd said, the best revenge is letting people know you're stronger than they think you are. What would happen to the money? I asked Amanda. It's still in escrow, untouched. Patricia can't access it without final closing documents, which I haven't filed. Another knock at the door revealed my nurse. Mrs. Parker, your latest test came back. The surgery was successful. Your heart is responding exactly as we hoped. For the first time since waking up, I smiled. My heart was strong, stronger than Patricia had counted on. Miss Torres, I turned back to Amanda. Could you hold off on any legal action until I'm released? I think I'd like to handle this personally. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course.
Here's my card.
Call me when you're ready. And Mrs. Parker, for what it's worth, I'm glad I double-checked those documents. After she left, I lay back against my pillows, plans already forming. Patricia thought she'd finally beaten me, taken away my sanctuary while I was at my weakest. She had no idea that her perfect plan was about to unravel. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Mom says, "You're being difficult about the lake house. Why can't you think about what's best for everyone?" I didn't reply. Let them think they'd won for now. Let Patricia celebrate her victory. Perhaps even plan how to spend the money. My grandfather had always said the lake was at its most beautiful just before dawn, when the mist rolled in and everything changed. I closed my eyes, remembering the smell of pine needles, the creak of old wooden floors, the way sunlight danced on water. Patricia thought she'd taken all that away from me, but she'd actually given me something precious, the perfect opportunity to show her exactly who she was dealing with. The nurse returned with my evening medication. "Your heart rate's looking much better," she said, checking the monitors. "Whatever you're thinking about must be good for you." I smiled, fingering Amanda's business card. "Just planning a little family reunion at the lake house. It's going to be unforgettable." 3 days after my surgery, I was discharged from the hospital. My recovery was progressing remarkably well, something Patricia attributed to the stress of that old lake house being lifted from your shoulders. She'd been calling daily, her voice dripping with fake concern while subtly reminding me how incapable I was of managing property. I let her talk, let her believe her plan had succeeded. Meanwhile, I was building my case meticulously. Amanda Torres had provided me with copies of every forged document, every fraudulent signature. The paper trail was damning. "I just don't understand why you're being so cold," Marcus said one evening as he brought me tea. He'd been sleeping in the guest room since my return, claiming he didn't want to disturb my recovery. Mom was trying to help. I sipped my tea slowly, studying my husband's face. The boy I'd fallen in love with was still there somewhere, buried under years of his mother's manipulation. "Help who?" Marcus asked. "Her? Stuff to my inheritance." He shifted uncomfortably. "The medical bills are covered by my insurance." I cut in. "The same insurance I've maintained through my job despite your mother's constant suggestions that I should quit and focus on being a proper wife. Liv, he knows how she is. She just wants what's best for her." "For who, Marcus? For me or for herself?" Before he could answer, my thumb buzzed. It was Amanda. "Mrs. Parker, the buyers are getting anxious. They're threatening to involve their lawyers if we don't explain the delay." "Actually, that's perfect timing," I said, watching Marcus's confused expression. "Could you set up a meeting? I think it's time everyone understood exactly what's happening." 2 days later, I walked into the real estate office, my medical clearance letter tucked safely in my bag along with other crucial documents. Patricia was already there, standing imperiously by Amanda's desk while Marcus hovered nearby. The buyers, a young couple named James and Sarah Miller, sat nervously in the corner. Finally, Patricia huffed. "Now we can sort out this ridiculous delay and complete the sale." I smiled serenely, taking a seat. "Yes, let's sort this out. Amanda, would you mind explaining to everyone why the sale was halted?" Amanda cleared her throat professionally. "Certainly. During our standard verification process, we discovered irregularities in the power of attorney documentation presented by Mrs. Wilson, specifically evidence of forgery." The room went silent. Patricia's face flushed dark red. "How dare you? I would never." "The notary stamp is fake," I continued calmly. "The paper stock is wrong and a signature, I pulled out my grandfather's will, doesn't match any of my legal documents. Would you like to explain that, Patricia?" Marcus stepped forward. "Mom, what is she talking about?" Patricia's composure cracked slightly. "She's lying. I had every right. You were in surgery. Decisions had to be made." "Actually," Amanda interjected, "Mrs. Parker's medical directive names her sister as her emergency decision maker, not you, Mrs. Wilson. You had no legal authority whatsoever." I turned to the Millers, who were watching the scene unfold with growing concern. "I'm so sorry you've been caught up in this. I know you were excited about the property." Sarah Miller nodded uncertainly. It's such a beautiful place." When we saw it, I know, I said softly. I grew up there. My grandfather taught me to swim in that lake, to fish off that dock. Every board in that house has a memory. This is ridiculous, Patricia burst out. You can't even take care of yourself, let alone a property. Marcus, tell her. But Marcus was staring at the forged documents on Amanda's desk, recognition dawning in his eyes. Mom, this is your handwriting. Patricia faltered for the first time. I was trying to protect you. She's been holding you back, keeping that prime property all to herself when we could have. When you could have what? I interrupted. Sold it, profited from my inheritance, created some investment opportunity for Marcus that would keep him dependent on you. I did it for him, Patricia shouted. Everything I do is for my son. No, Marcus said quietly. You did it for yourself. You always do. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia looked from Marcus to me, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady. The sale is void. It was never legal to begin with. The Millers will get their earnest money back, with my sincere apologies for the confusion. And then Patricia sneered, trying to regain control. Then you have a choice. I replied, you can either face charges for fraud and forgery, or you can sign. I pulled out a document my lawyer had prepared. It's a formal acknowledgement of your actions and a legally binding agreement to never interfere with my property or medical decisions again. You wouldn't dare press charges, she scoffed. You never do that to Marcus. I met my husband's eyes for the first time in years. He was really seeing me and his mother. Actually, he said, I think she would and she should. Patricia's face crumpled. Marcus, sign the papers, Mom, or I'll drive her to the police station myself. With trembling hands and wounded dignity, Patricia signed the agreement. Amanda notarized it properly this time and made copies for everyone. As we left the office, Marcus touched my arm gently. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have seen it sooner. I looked at him, seeing glimmers of the man I'd married emerging from his mother's shadow. Yes, you should have. We have a lot to talk about. Behind us, I heard Patricia's heels clicking rapidly on the pavement as she hurried away, her perfect plan in shambles. The lake house was safe, but more importantly, the truth was finally out. That evening, sitting on our back porch, Marcus asked quietly, Will you take me to the lake house? Help me understand what it means to you. I smiled, thinking of dawn mist and gentle waves. Yes, I said. I think it's time you saw it through my eyes instead of your mother's. Recovery, I was learning, came in many forms. Sometimes it was a healing heart, sometimes a healing marriage, and sometimes it was simply standing your ground when others tried to take what was yours. 6 months after the confrontation at the real estate office, I stood on the lake house dock watching the sunrise paint the water gold. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and possibilities. Behind me, I heard the screen door creak and Marcus's footsteps on the wooden planks. Coffee, he offered, holding out a steaming mug. Thanks, I said, accepting both the coffee and his presence beside me. These quiet morning moments had become our new ritual during weekend visits to the lake house. We were rebuilding slowly but surely, finding our way back to each other, without Patricia's shadow looming over us. The changes in our lives had been significant. Marcus had started therapy, working through years of his mother's manipulation. Patricia, faced with the evidence of her actions and the threat of legal consequences, had moved to Florida to live with her sister. She still sent occasional emails, but they were subdued, lacking the controlling edge that had once characterized every interaction. I got a call from the Millers yesterday, Marcus said, sipping his coffee. They found another property on the other side of the lake. They're happy there, I nodded, thinking of the young couple who'd unwittingly been caught in Patricia's scheme. I'm glad. They seemed like good people. They are, James said. If we'd like to join them for a barbecue next weekend. He said something about building a better lake community. The idea made me smile. My grandfather had always talked about the importance of good neighbors, how the lake brings people together in ways city living never could. He would have liked the Millers. We'd spent the past few months restoring the lake house, not just physically, but emotionally. Each room held memories, The kitchen where my grandfather taught me to cook his famous fish fry. The living room where I'd recuperated after my first heart surgery as a teenager. The sun porch where I'd spent countless hours reading and dreaming. Marcus had thrown himself into the restoration work, learning the history of every repair, every upgrade my grandfather had made. It was his way of making amends, of showing me he understood what he'd almost lost. "I found something in the attic yesterday," he said, pulling an old photograph from his pocket. It showed my grandfather and me on this very dock, both of us grinning as I held up my first caught fish. "You look so happy here." I said softly. "I am this place. It's more than just property, Marcus. It's every summer spent learning from my grandfather, every storm washed from the porch, every peaceful morning like this one." "Your mother never understood that. She never tried to," he admitted. "She only saw the monetary value, the status." "I'm sorry I let her view cloud mine for so long." My heart condition had stabilized remarkably since the surgery. The doctors said stress reduction played a big part in my recovery, and I knew removing Patricia's toxic influence had been as healing as any medical procedure. "I've been thinking," Marcus said, turning to face me, "what if we started some new traditions here? Make this place mean something to us, not just about the past." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "What did you have in mind?" "Well," he smiled, "remember how you always talked about running art workshops? The sunroom would make a perfect studio. And that patch of land by the old boathouse, we could start a garden there. Something your grandfather would have loved." The idea warmed me more than the coffee. My grandfather had always said the lake house should be a living thing, growing and changing while keeping its heart intact. "I'd like that," I said. "But only if you're sure this is my sanctuary, Marcus. I won't have it turn into another battlefield." He took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "I'm sure. I want to build something here with you. Something that's ours. No more letting my mother's voice dictate our choices." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with an email notification from Patricia. I glanced at it briefly. Another thinly veiled attempt to assert control, suggesting we sell that old place and invest in Florida property near her. I deleted it. "You know what I learned from all this," I said, turning back to the sunrise. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply hold your ground, not with anger or revenge, but with quiet certainty in what you know is right." Marcus squeezed my hand. "You've always been the strong one. I just didn't see it before." A fish jumped in the distance, creating ripples that spread across the golden water. Like those ripples, the effects of standing our ground had spread through every aspect of our lives. Our marriage was stronger, clearer. My health was better than it had been in years. And the lake house, my grandfather's legacy, remained a sanctuary, not just of the past now, but of our future too. "Come on," I said, tugging Marcus toward the house. "Let's make breakfast. I think it's time I taught you my grandfather's secret pancake recipe." As we walked back along the dock, I sent a silent thank you to my grandfather. He left me more than just a house by the lake. He'd given me a place to find my strength, to heal, to grow, and now, finally, it was helping heal my marriage too. The morning mist was lifting, revealing a clear, bright day ahead, just the kind of day for new beginnings.